Hello, everybody, and welcome to... I really should think up names for these things in advance. That's a thing I've never really managed to do. But welcome to this interview with the creators and authors, collaborative authors of This Bites, the One Piece self-insert fic that is currently... What place is it on fanfiction.net right now? I think it was 5th, I think you said?
Oh, 17th, 18th, somewhere around there.
17th, 18th-ish, which is damned high for a self-insert fic.
And considering there are over 100,000 One Piece fics on that site, it's damn high for a fic in general.
Yeah, kind of is. So, I am here with Xomniac. Xomniac?
Hi there, sorry.
Yeah, it's alright. The patient one.
A pleasure to be here.
I can't tell whether that's his natural voice or he's just putting it on, but if it's his natural voice,
I can't tell either.
Oddly alluring. I can't...
I try.
And CV12Hornet. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, him too. Sorry, I got a bit distracted, but yeah, okay. Yeah, CV12Hornet is also
tell.
here. Yeah, so this is going to be nice laid-back interview. We're just going to have a chat about how they wrote the story, how they continue to write the story, where they think it's going to go going forward, what they do elsewise, and any thoughts they have on writing collaborative fics or fics in this particular style. So we're going to jump right in with ancient history question of what exactly did you guys do before you decided to join up into a hive mind and write a fic collaboratively? So we'll start with CV12. Let's go with Hornet. We'll call you Hornet because we need a more convenient name. Hornet,
Sure.
What did you do before you were Crossbrain?
Well, I've been reading fan fiction since basically high school. A lot of fan fiction. Other than that, I mostly went to school and did school things. And at least until Xomniac contacted me to help out with one of his earlier fics. And
Not This Bites, then? A different one?
Not This Bites. That was a later project. And while we were doing that, I decided that, hey, I'm helping him. Maybe he could help me with writing a fic of my own, because I have tried to write a few fics before, but they weren't very good and never got anywhere. So that worked out pretty well for a while. And then we started writing on This Bites, and that's been gradually consuming more and more of my creative energies. So
as it happens.
Yep.
So you started writing bits and pieces yourself, and then Xomniac contacted you?
Yep, to help with his fic.
And it snowballed from
and
there.
Then, it snowballed from there.
Okay. So, Xomniac, what did you do before Crossbrain?
Well, basically, it was kind of the same as Hornet. I've always been working on fanfiction since reading and writing fanfiction since high school. As he said, I tapped him for some work on one of my first bigger projects, an MLP fic. It was a while back, and as creative juices kind of slowly died out into a hiatus for that fic, he contacted me for help on his RWBY fic, which I was more than happy to help him with.
It's pronounced Ruby, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but still. It just
Okay.
makes it easy to recognize, I guess,
Okay.
Anyway, I helped him with the commission and with a lot of fun. And when, creative juices started dying with that, we started working on my first One Piece fic, Ripples, Waves, Tsunamis. And it was in the middle of that we came up with the concept for This Bites, and, the rest. Well, I'll explain the rest later, but still, that's basically it.
We'll get to the rest. Okay, I left you for last just for the sake of doing the joke of the patient one. You've been so patient. How did you get started? What did you do before Crossbrain?
A compulsory joke, certainly. Well, I've I haven't been a fan of fan fictions for as long as these two have. I only discovered it within the past few years, but I quickly grew to like the Peggy Sue genre in particular. I started browsing for stories that use that particular plot line,
That being,
and
for the
And
uninformed, the trope of going back in time and redoing events is
precisely.
the
I was going to say
Pegasus.
that.
I suppose I should have specified that for those who aren't trippers.
No, that's fine. That's why I'm here, moderator. Hi, it's my job, so don't worry about it.
Anyway, for the most part, I was merely browsing the stories, favoriting them, enjoying reading certain stories time and again. But, well, I do have some ideas in mind for my own stories, but the issue is layering those ideas into a presentable format and just getting them to a degree that I consider satisfactory. And presently I haven't made enough progress on that to publish them or even publish the first chapter. I mean, the one thing I hate more than anything else is when fics dead ends, so I typically plan out everything that I'm planning to do for my story ahead of time before I publish them. Well, I say that, I haven't published any of them. The only story I have that's mine alone that I've written is called Changing the Future, with redone in parentheses, as I adopted it from another artist, another writer on fanfiction called, I believe it's pronounced Blua. I found the premise intriguing when I stumbled onto his story, only in a few chapters, and after several months of him not updating, I started messaging him with ideas on what he could do for later chapters. He accepted the ideas, but a couple of months later, when I hadn't heard back from him, I presented an extremely rough draft of one of the chapters that could come next, and he told me at that time that he was unlikely to be working on the story at all henceforth. So he offered to let me adopt the fic. I accepted with some reservations, as I had never done it before, but it's turned out rather well, and, well, this bite has been eating up a lot of my creative energy, but once I get the time, I'll just settle down and write the last chapter in the epilogue. I've already got a vague idea in mind for what I want to do for both, so it's just a matter of time. But really, I'm more content as part of the cross-brain than anything, just being a part of something greater than anything I could manage on my own. That's quite enough for me.
Aww.
Thanks, man. It's great to have you with us.
It's my pleasure.
Your voice still gets me every time.
Yeah.
Like talking to a cartoon snake, in a good way.
Ugh.
It's not quite accentuating the S's as much as one might expect.
But it's more of a matter of tone, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so I will very much agree with what you did, specifically about the story that was dead, and you messaged the author and said, hey, here's an idea for where this could go, and they just ended up adopting it. That's a good idea for the audience's sake. If you like a story but it's dead and you want to see it continued, it's entirely okay most of the time to continue it yourself. A lot of the time, if it's an abandoned story, the writer will be more than happy for you to just take it on yourself and just keep it going and adopt it.
As a matter of fact, that's the whole reason I got into writing fan fiction in the first place. You see a vacancy of a certain sort of fic that you'd like to see, and, well, my mindset was, if you want something done right, do it yourself. It hasn't come to much yet, but I'm working on it.
And that's basically how I got the idea for the commission too. There have been villain protagonist stories in the Ruby fandom before, and there was at least one big one. But I looked at it and was like, hey, I don't think this is very good. And then my brain started coming up with ideas, and I went and I had Xomniac for help. I went and ran with it. Yeah. Although with the whole adopting fix thing, always make sure to ask the author's permission first.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that myself. You definitely have to make sure you have permission, or else there's just going to be nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Unless it's one of my dead fics, in which case, if you want to take Game of the Year edition off my hands, please, for the love of God, so people will just stop bothering me about it, that'd be great.
Well, in that case, you got to sign up on your profile basically saying, go ahead and take this. In that case, it's fine to just go ahead and take it. Well, as long as you notify the authors that you're taking it, but still.
Yeah.
Basically, you got to have something you can point to say, it's okay, I can adopt this.
Okay, so we've gone over how Hornet and Xomniac met through the collaborative fic. How did you two meet the patient one?
Matt?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, basically, I really love TV tropes. It's a great way, TV tropes page, website, it's a great way of finding fan fiction and stuff online, in my personal opinion, and I love it whenever one of my stories gets a page up on there. So when I noticed someone, a guy known as Mitis on TV Tropes, who was putting up One Piece fanfic pages, I asked him if he could possibly look at my story, give it his opinion, and possibly set up a page for it. Midas read my story, he liked it, and he put up the page. And for a while, he was the foremost contributor to said page. He then proceeded to, we talked a few times on the TV Tropes PM page. That was perfectly fine. And at one point or another, he just casually asked me about what Cross looked like, just specific details, which I kind of had been skimping on describing in the main story, admittedly. He then, a few weeks later, he contacted me again, and this time it was with a totally
You cut out a little bit there. A lot.
Yeah. I think he was talking about the piece of fan art he commissioned of Cross that I believe it's trademarked on the Space Battles page, but that was the first indication I had that the relationship went anything beyond TV tropes, and was shortly after that Patient One was basically signed on as another co-author.
Oh, it wasn't quite that simple.
Well, yes, but my memories of that time is a little fuzzy, so...
Well, allow me to elaborate then. It was a couple of months after I started first following this Bites that I asked that question. I've always been sort of a passionate fan for things that I'm a fan of. And, well, seeing as how I had a bit of money to spare, I ever so casually asked Xomniac about the descriptions for Cross, and I took it to a deviant artist by the name of Nowen. 9 days of drawing later, I showed Xomniac the sketch that he provided, and Xomniac's reaction was, and I quote, "Hot holy hell on a hamburger, that's freaking gorgeous."
I
didn't know this part. I didn't know this part.
I didn't see it coming out anywhere, and it really was great. So I didn't have any other reaction, really.
I like the touch of the exact quote, by the way. That's very cool.
Xomniac random exclamations are hilarious.
What can I say? I'm creative. It's why people love us.
Absolutely. Anyway, I also offered my services as a copy editor at the time. I've always had a good skill with proofreading, but he went one step beyond that and gave me a backstage pass, allowing me to help him write the story. Quite frankly, I was a little overwhelmed, but I accepted. But for a while, I was just submitting slight ideas here and there while he answered any questions I had about the plot of the story, what he had planned, what was coming. And to be perfectly honest, knowing the story ahead of time only makes me look forward to it even more. If anything, it puts more pressure on me, considering the fact that I'm part of the reason how soon or how late it comes out. But for a while on the project, I was just treading carefully, not wanting to abuse the gift of the backstage pass he gave me. And honestly, in that time, I think I recall once or twice just having to step back, not wanting to upstage the ones who are actually writing the story. But at some point, I can't remember exactly when it was, he gave me permissions to make any edits that I saw fit, and from there it just evolved even more until I became a full-blown co-writer.
Like most of the more recent chapters, he's written probably about 40 to 50% of it.
At first,
Just a guesstimate from watching the writing process.
Okay.
He writes a significant chunk of it. That's what I'm saying.
He just took an idea in his head. He totally re-railroaded the entire ways the chapter was going, and it was glorious. I mean, it was way better than what I had in mind. It was just incredible.
Okay. So that actually leads kind of nicely into the next question. So collaborative works, they're not rare. There's quite a lot of them out there, but they tend to either fizzle out rather quickly, or the co-writers get into a disagreement creatively or personally, and it just all sort of falls to pieces. Yours is probably one of the most successful, more surprisingly because it's between 3 people rather than 2. So how does that work exactly? I mean, you've said that the patient one started basically as a very, very involved beta reader, more or less, from the way that you've said it, for the sake of fanfiction terms, because that's where most of our audience comes from. And then sort of moved into a co-writer position, taking a lot more of a direct hand in how the story goes. So is it sort of a decision by committee, or is it just sort of, does someone take the lead on it at any point?
Well,
go ahead.
Well, speaking on collaborative projects in general, I think there are 2 big reasons why the crossbane works and a lot of other collaborative works don't. The first is that, let's be clear, at the end of the day, Xomniac is the dictator of the group. If he puts his foot down and decides that we're going to do something this way, we're basically going to shut up and go along. And a lot of collaborative fics have been done in by squabbling between authors with no one to put their foot down and say, this is what we're doing, damn it. So shut up and sit down, shut up and write.
But the fact remains that for this bite, Xomniac is the one with all of the... He's the one who comes up with the plot. He's the creative mastermind behind it all. Without him, the story's just kaput. He's the most integral part of the cross-brain.
Yeah.
If I may... Oh, go ahead.
Which leads into my second point, is that another big problem for collaborative fics is that they get bogged down in the planning stage as everyone throws in ideas and figures out how to work them out. Like one place I've seen that happen was the old Battle Fantasia project on space battles, which it was a great concept, but they had hundreds of pages of plotting and planning and short snippets and no story. So, and Xomniac being the central planner of all this basically eliminates that problem. So,
Okay.
I guess it just comes down to the fact that ultimately this is Xomniac's spec. So that's also all the problems of collaborative fix.
I basically have the idea and the plot and the events in my head, sure. But Vince, well, the patient one is the one who can interpret it. He can get it down. He can get into a proper image perfectly well. He can get out tons of material. I just need to whittle it down a little bit, mold it the right way so that it looks perfectly how I've got in my head. And Hornet goes back over it, and he just makes it smack. He makes corrections to keep it from being too ham-handed. He fine-tunes it past my own fine-tuning, you know?
Okay, so you could say you actually have specializations in the triumvirate that you have going. So Xomniac does the plot in a general sense. The patient one does, you could say, the meat of the chapter, filling it out, making it more substantial, you could say. And Hornet would fine-tune, get the details right, and make it, let's say, flow nicely as well.
Exactly. Yeah. That's probably the biggest thing I do for the fic.
It's why we have that whole Freudian trio thing going on. The id is the
I was going to ask about that. Because I have vague ideas of what that actually means in psychological terms, but for the sake of the audience, what does the ego, superego, and id actually mean?
If I may.
Go ahead.
Well, it's essentially the division of, to put it simply, the id is basically represented. Id stands, I think, for inner desires. It's just the creative part, the unrestrained part that's just specializes in coming up with the ideas, essentially. The superego is the
hyper-rational?
That's it. Yes, the one that keeps everything about as rational as you can make it, as logical and intellectual as you can manage it. So it's the creative half and the rational half, and the ego serves as the middleman between the two.
Or to put it another way, the id is what's telling you to get that Big Mac with fries. The superego is what's telling you to get a salad so you can lose weight, and the ego is trying to balance those two desires out.
A blunt way, that's but more effective than what I said, I'm sure.
You need both the blunt explanation and the detailed explanation with this sort of thing.
Okay, so to put that in the writing terms, you have the ego, which is Xomniac, the driving force of the story. You have I didn't double check this, but I'm going to assume the superego of Hornet, I'm going to say?
Yep.
Yep, who would be the one that makes things make sense and keeps it all tight and compacted, so it's not, as the id would have it, a bit too much waffle and just kind of going on and being fancy.
Pretty much, yeah.
So he's got to kind of contend with my own stuff as well, so.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to run through my questions. Okay, so let's talk about planning then. So I'm not entirely sure. It's a bit uncertain as far as like reading the thread is concerned. How far exactly ahead do you plan? Is there a long-running plan in general terms, or have you tuned everything down to exact terms of how everything's going to happen?
Exact. Heavens, no. We've got a general idea, certainly, but we keep coming up with new ideas for side every day.
So basically, we've got a general plan, up to the Zhou arc, but
About there, right around there, it starts becoming really hazy. We still need more time for Oda to properly cement the future, because as we all know, that guy loves to throw curveballs like no other. So
Oda never forgets.
exactly, yes. We got to be really careful because we never know what details are going to come up. If we screw something up, then basically
It'll
we
be fixed
hang
whole
ourselves.
project. Yeah. But we've got a general outline up to Zhou, but
You're gonna have to remind me. I'm not entirely 100% up on my One Piece. Show is which arc?
It's
Last
the one.
Rosa.
giant island elephant.
It's the one right before the current one.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not entirely
But-
caught up. I haven't actually read Dressrosa yet. so-
Yeah.
You need to read it.
I need to get... It's...
Anyway,
I just finished Fishman Island, so it's still... Even then, it's still a lot to catch up on, so bear with me. But
That's a good point.
point is that we've got hazy, we've got semi-malleable planning past past the start of the time skip. After that, things become really hazy. So it's chances are that things can change or not. Some parts are concrete, some parts aren't. They all depend on what Oda does, on how he puts on what significance he assigns to certain actions. After that, we can have Cross and Straw Hats affect them however we want. But for now, we gotta be careful.
yeah, I mean,
And-
realistically, by the time you get up to the time skip, they're going to have gone a lot further in the manga, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's more
So
solid.
that'll help.
Yeah, okay.
And we've got quite a bit more detail all planned up to the time skip. Not enough to completely plot out everything. We don't have every single detail all planned out, but we've got a fairly detailed roadmap right up until the time skip.
Yeah, we tend to hammer out the finest of fine points in the chapter itself,
Yeah.
as we're slowly writing it.
Yeah, you gotta let the chapter flow.
Precisely.
Okay, well, we're actually fully in agreement on that, though I do a lot less planning than you guys do, apparently. So, we've talked about how your plans have gone and how far you planned ahead. So what do you do with the plots that you're not going to use? Like, as you say, the chapter has to, in a sense, write itself to an extent. What do you do when things get thrown off the rails a little bit in the process of writing? What do you do with the plots that you're never going to use?
Well, sometimes, if there are plots that we don't think we're ever going to use, sort of like, if I may be so bold, the one that Xomniac had planned for the most recent chapter up until I presented a different idea and pretty much obliterated any chance of using that.
By sheer awesomeness.
Pardon?
But yeah, go. By sheer awesomeness, of course.
Of
Go on.
Anyway, in events where they seem unlikely ever to happen, they're simply discarded and forgotten. But we do have a document set aside where we note down specific ideas that come to mind, either ideas for a future part of the story that could be useful, that would be incorporated at a later point, and one of us, usually me, just had the inspiration to write out that section of the story as it was to come. Or it's a plot line that we didn't have that we weren't able to write in, but we could still use it at some point later. For example, I was hoping that we could manage to get Boss to say, "Now it doesn't matter why, but I am friends with some alligators."
That's one we are definitely using next chapter. You can look forward to that one.
Yeah, and during the chase scene with the Unluckies, when Cross had to hop down a canal on the tied-up boats, that was one of those fragments. It's been a couple of months since I wrote that one, I think. We're also sitting on what's basically a 10,000 word omake, And I really can't wait to release that. It's going to be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Of course, we can't tell you the specifics of that omake because it is spoilers galore. I believe that, a few heads would explode, and we would have to kill you if we told you. So,
But
yes.
But we can at least reveal that they came up with that entire thing before I even came on board.
Yeah. I should also mention... No, wait, no, never mind. I can't mention that because even that's spoilers.
Okay.
Spoilers all up in this bitch.
It's big.
Okay. So we'll skirt around that particular... But it can be basically said that at this point, the cross-brain also apparently never forgets.
No.
Based on what you said.
Try our best. Sometimes a gag we planned out before just happens to slip on through in the moment, and there are many tears shed at that point.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so... One of the weird things about writing a self-insert story, and I'm a little bit of a victim of this as well, having written one to an extent myself, shipping. So, being a triumvirate and a collaborative effort, it's harder to say that it's a self-insert directly. But is it still odd when you have the audience saying, oh, Cross should get with such and such a character? Is it weird to have someone ship, in a sense, you with characters?
Yeah, well, may I take this particular portion of the question, seeing how I'm technically Cross? Mind?
Okay, we'll go with, yeah.
All right.
Deal.
Sometimes a minor bit. I suppose I've dissociated myself a little bit from Cross over time, but mainly I don't.
Kind of inevitable.
Yeah, I don't really get to me seeing how they're space battlers, they're sufficient velocity goers, they're gonna ship. It's the internet.
Shipper's gonna ship.
Not the first thing I associate with space battlers, but okay.
Okay, let me...
It's a thing, yeah.
Slight tangent, but I gotta explain something about space battles. Here's their identity. They're Rambo on the outside and Disney princesses on the inside. They affect a tough macho persona, but in the end, they want to see the fluff and want to see the characters be happy and everything. If you frequent the quest sections of both sites, it gets pretty damn obvious.
So because you're saying Space Battle is just like any other fanfiction readers on any other site, basically.
We just happen to have a higher quality. We just happen to have a higher base quality.
And they're a little more...
Yeah, okay.
They are a little more obsessed with blowing things up. Like, one of the more longer-running quests on Sufficient Velocity is half of its cute, fluffy goodness about trying to fix Puella Magi Nautica Magica, the plot and the characters and all that. And the other half is seeing how they can break physics with their ability, with the central character's abilities. It's a pretty...
of course, we ourselves are not exempt from this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, and they're also apparently obsessed with the printing press for some reason. Yeah. That's my interpretation of space battles at this point. I read 3 Game of Thrones self-inserts in a row. All 3 of them decided to invent the printing press as almost the first thing that they did.
Oh, God.
Ev is the winner of all of those, and no matter what anybody says, my opinion.
What was that, sorry?
Greyjoy Alabrev conquers all, my opinion. Never mind, moving on.
I have no idea who that is, but we'll go with it.
Of the 3 that I read, they all have their positives and negatives. Greyjoy Alabrev is the not serious one. It's the fun one.
Exactly.
Which works.
Which is also why it is the least Game of Thrones one. But that's,
yeah.
That would be the negative point. Anyway. Tangent, as you say. So, we've talked about shipping. Did you expect the fic to become this popular? Because self-insert fics, outside of space battles at least, tend to do poorly, let's say?
A concise answer would be no. Less concise
No.
answer would be hell no.
No, at this point, it's bigger than any other. It's at least double the popularity of any of our other fics.
It surpasses most of our other fics combined, even.
Yeah. The only reason it doesn't surpass all of them combined is because my current project is pretty popular on its own. So.
Well, basically to lay it out for you, already self-inserts tend to be hit and miss in their quality. Some of them do all right-ish, some of them are great, but then a lot of them are just those special snowflake fanfiction.net ones that, dear God, you just want to take out back and shoot in the head.
You mean
Then you've got the anime ones, which are populated by even more shoot in the head ones, and then the One Piece ones, basically before this bites, there has really not been an all that good One Piece self-insert fic. Basically, we're writing...
Go ahead, Patient One. Sorry to interrupt
Sorry,
you,
go
he's
ahead,
been
go
waiting
ahead,
to
go.
talk for a bit.
Well,
Sorry.
I just want to point out, but Mom, Zom.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I was saying more on fanfiction.net, but yeah. But Mom, I know, yeah.
Well, that one started on fanfiction.net.
Actually, that's as decent a segue as any into another point that I want to bring up about self-insert fics. So, self-insert fics have actually seen a recent uptick in quality.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Even on fanfiction.net, and some people have done an analysis, and the culprit is Dreaming of Sunshine. I think most of you have probably at least heard of it.
I have not. I was not expecting you to say that. There was another one I was expecting you to say, but go on.
The thing is, a lot of Dreaming of Sunshine has basically started the bandwagon. The bandwagon being the thing about Dreaming of Sunshine is that A, it's a reincarnation self-insert, so a lot of the meta-knowledge is lost, and B, it takes place outside of the usual canon. So it neatly avoids a lot of two of the biggest pitfalls in self-insert fics, excessive meta-knowledge and being welded to the stations of canon. So, and the best part is, it started the bandwagon. So a lot of recent self-insert fics have been adopting those elements, and which has led to an uptick in quality, and it's also possibly led to some better authors looking into the genre and thinking,
taking it a bit more seriously.
Take it more seriously. Maybe this isn't quite as an inherently awful premise as I thought it was. So they decided to try their hand in it. So, yeah.
To clarify, Dreaming of Sunshine is a Naruto self-insert fic.
Yeah.
Xomniac and Hornet think very highly of it. The only reason I haven't looked into it myself is that I still haven't managed to get into Naruto yet. Not for lack of desire, but for lack of opportunity.
And in fairness, it's 700 chapters long, so...
It's also terrible, and you'd probably be better getting into it through fan fiction than through the actual material, but that's my opinion.
In fairness to Naruto, it didn't start terrible.
It just kind of slowly down spiraled.
No.
But yeah.
They're not nearly as badly as Bleach. Oh my god, Bleach.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's move on from bashing other anime things before we get...
Let's not say bashing. I mean, Naruto, yes,
I know.
It has some negative points, but it also has some very good positive points.
And
it's a very good setting, which we've always said on the podcast, is that it's the best part of the series, because it lets you write a lot about it, and it has a lot of the framework there for you that you could just write stories in the universe, and you've got the details there.
There's a reason there are over 250,000 fics on them on fanfiction.net.
Yeah.
It is easily the most popular among all anime and manga.
Yeah.
And the only fandom that's bigger is Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And the reason for
Twilight.
that,
All right, yeah, bashing might have been the wrong word. I just mean let's move on before we get a lynch mob of fans after our heads. All right.
But to bring it back to One Piece also has that very good setting that's very well defined, but somehow does not quite have the same, not audience, but it doesn't have the same core of writers that Naruto seems to have. Just hasn't picked up quite so much in fanfiction circles for whatever reason.
I think the issue there is basically what makes One Piece good is just how unique it is. It's got this unique tone that is unmatched by practically any other manga. Sorry, I tend to mispronounce that. Anyway, the point is that a big compliment a lot of people have given me over time is that I managed to capture the One Piece tone. And I'm not saying that you have to capture the tone, but I'm basically thinking that there's a reason that a lot of people don't really tend to write for it is that they don't feel they can capture the tone right. I just try and emulate Oda the best as I can myself, so.
Yeah, I've read a couple of fics that have tried to capture the tone. One specifically that very much hasn't, which would be Serpent Guy's. I'm tempted to call it a magnum opus, but he would get so mad at me for saying that. But
I think he's done a great job of mixing One Piece and Worm on both sides. He put the munchkinness and the escalation of Worm into One Piece, and he put the over-the-topness and a general insanity of One Piece into Worm. I mean, the guy is really good. He's got my confidence. I really like him. It's the reason why I use his fic as a metric, because seriously.
You should probably tell him that he hates that fic. He hates it so much now.
Seriously?
I'd point out it's not just a very unique. It's not just the unique whimsy of One Piece that makes it hard that has prevented good authors from latching onto it. For one, it's kind of hard to diverge from the stations of canon in One Piece because simply due to how the voyage works. If you want to go off the rails, you have to do a lot of world building, and let's be clear, most writers have no desire and not really the ability to do that kind of world building. And the second one, One Piece just never really took off in the United States like Naruto did, like a lot of the other big fandoms.
4Kids kind of shot it in the foot.
God damn you, 4Kids.
With a shotgun. Ugh.
Yes, that it's as popular as it is in the States is a testament to Oda's writing ability. Let's be clear, because it has not gotten any help. Yeah. It is pure word of mouth.
Yeah, I mean, but to talk about your first point a little bit more, the whole it being difficult to veer off of canon territory and you have to do a lot of world building. Kenshi has been saying very much the same thing. Kenshi618, who wrote, what was it called? Shit.
Nobody of the High Seas, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, that one.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Embarrassing memory of liking it way back when I was first getting into fanfiction.
Space battlers. Always hating on Kenshi. It's a bit of a running joke with us at this point.
I actually don't mind Shinobi of the High Seas.
As I said, guilty pleasure. It's just looking back on it. I can see a lot of cliches and stuff, but overall, it's not bad. I'll admit that.
It's a good popcorn fic.
Yeah. And one of the things he said about writing it is that you try and write something that diverges from canon, and you have to do so much world building that it slows the pace of writing it right the hell down, at least in fanfiction terms, to the point where you're basically writing entirely original material, more or less.
It just makes sense, really.
Yeah, that's actually one of the I've had a Kill la Kill One Piece crossover in my head for a while, and I even wrote a first chapter for it a while back, but the amount of world building I'd have to do for the One Piece side of things is pretty damn daunting.
Yeah, you get that the stage you get for the Straw Hats is glorious, sure, but it's just one island at a time. Basically, we've only seen a fraction of what the Grand Blue has to offer, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to start a One Piece fic myself. One of the most basic concepts you can have for One Piece, Luffy switching sides basically to join the Marines, and I still ended up damn near going right back to canon because I had no idea where to take it and didn't really have any foundation to take it through for the Marine side.
Well, I might recommend looking into a fic that I discovered that looked into that to protect everything. I looked into it myself last night. I'd seen the concept many times. When Shanks saved Luffy from drowning, he decided to become a Marine Admiral instead of King of the Pirates. I was skeptical about the goodness of it, but I looked into it, and well, it follows canon pretty closely, but nevertheless, well, I like it personally. It was well written, plausible. Seemed to take the butterfly into effect to the necessary extent. Very interesting.
I mean, that's the tricky thing. It's such a fundamental change for the... I'm getting such a tangent right now, but it's a fundamental change as far as the characters are concerned, but even so, it's difficult to... Because it would change so much at the very base of it, it's hard to even take it anywhere without just trying to retread canon just for the sake of just a single foothold of where you would actually take the story. But we should probably get back to the actual questions for you guys, because I've been drawing us away from it for quite some time now. So let's talk about the future. So you've said you've planned ahead quite a ways for the story, at least in general terms, but mostly firm, plans for up to the time skip. So anything you'd care to share right now?
Oh, geez, where to even start?
Well,
how about this? Involves a wedding.
Attempted manslaughter.
A tale of love found and lost all too soon.
Habitual amputation.
I want to say Michael Jackson?
Inadvertent necromancy.
Chainsaws on fire.
A multi-million berry scam pulled off successfully.
Dragons that breathe fire.
A world-shaking demonstration of what happens when you multiply a negative by a negative.
An undead cyborg Tyrannosaurus Rex that would make Dresden eat his heart out. That also breathes fire.
What is it with you and fire, Xomniac?
And this is why
you noticed?
And this is why I'm the superego.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you pretty much just outlined the entirety of Thriller Bark, then, is what you just did, yes?
Oh, you have no idea.
Hell no, we just went far beyond that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, one thing I can do though is give you the points where we're going to drop our biggest bombshells. So there's one coming right at the end of Ennies.
Of course.
Of
course. There's one coming just before the time skip. Just before the time skip.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then one at Shabandi.
Sabadi, I believe, is how you pronounce it.
The original scans I read were Shabandi and it stuck. Sorry.
Mm.
They pronounce it in the show Shabandi for whatever reason, so...
What?
Okay, I'll stick with that then.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Japanese.
Yeah, it's a weird language. I don't get it either. We tried to learn through the video game, learn Japanese hiragana battle or something. It was very slow and boring. Anyway, that video is coming out soon, by the way, audience, so look forward to that. So, anything in particular that you want to promote outside of cross-braininess? So, solo stuff that you're working on, or collaborative stuff with other people, or between pairings of yourselves, or hell, even other cross-brain stuff?
Well, really, if you guys don't mind, do you mind if I promote that? You know? Well, basically, I've got my own original story I'm working on. I'm going to be working on. I'm bringing these two in to help me with it. When we're probably going to be working on it during a hiatus, we're probably most likely going to take when we reach this time skip to give Oda time to buffer us a little bit. It's called Peace by Claw, Order by Fang. It's an original story by me. The first few chapters of it are on sufficient velocity and space battles. If you could look it up sometime, that'd be really fantastic.
Okay, so I'm going to need a link for that so I can put it in the description for the video.
Sure, I'll get it to you once it's done.
Okay, absolutely. So anyone else? Anything that you want to promote?
Well,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm still thinking about it.
Patient one, please go.
Well, I already mentioned my story earlier, but oh, what am I thinking? Of course there's one story that we want to promote, that of our rival.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
New Game Plus.
It's a great One Piece fic. It's basically my favorite kind. It's the one that takes the throttle and rams it straight up to 11.
Oh yeah, the Insanity Index it has an extremely high Insanity Index. And we love every minute of it.
Go ahead.
The basic concept is Peggy Sue travel back in time to change something. Essentially, though, the one thing that sets this apart most, well, all 9 of the Straw Hats at the time are sent back in time with their memories. They're sent essentially 3 years before the start of the storyline, and, well...
You can guess how most of them usually go, right?
Of course.
Well,
But,
that's actually surprising as a concept alone, because Peggy Sue Fix, it tends to be just one person, and obviously in One Piece Fix it's always Luffy.
Yeah.
So doing the whole crew is actually kind of surprising to me, and an interesting take on it.
Exactly. It's what makes it so great, because usually Peggy Sue fics like that, they tend to be somewhat Mary Sue-ish, and that tends to go, really turn readers off of it, because then it's one character hogging the spotlight to themselves, being all great and everything, and admittedly that can get a bit boring. New Game Plus averts that by widening the spotlight so that everyone can fit under it, and it is glorious.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't hurt them. It's also already taking Dynamite to the rails.
Oh, yes. You see, the reasoning that Luffy had was, since there were only 9 of them, the thing that got them sent back in time in the first place, no real spoilers here, this all happens in the first few paragraphs. They were, it's an alternate take on what happened after Dressrosa. The Straw Hats wound up at an island that turned out to be a buster call, or that turned out to be an ambush set by Admiral Akainu, or Fleet Admiral.
Basically, shit is fucked.
Yeah,
They basically
that.
They were overwhelmed altogether. So after they escape, thanks to naturally a Deus Ex Machina in the form of Dr. Vegapunk's experimental time machine,
Luffy, the walking Deus Ex Machina, really.
Luffy elects to, well, seeing as how they were overwhelmed by numbers, he decides to take advantage of what he knows to add more numbers to his crew. He essentially forms the Straw Hat Armada this time around.
And again, this was before Dressrosa, basically the end of the Dressrosa arc basically canonized that.
I really need to read this story. I was thinking about it when I read the most recent chapter you released like a couple days ago, and yeah, I'm reading this fucking story. That's what's going to happen now.
Yeah, he's the second most popular. He is our rival. I mean, seriously, we never expect. I'll be honest, I didn't really expect to soon be knocking on his door, but we are just a digit away from. Yeah, it's going to be epic. I really look forward to actually being able to butt heads with him on equal ground. That will be epic.
And it's funny when you consider that at the start of this all, he didn't even consider us a worthy threat. As I believe he said, and as for our rivalry, it will probably be... it was some Naruto reference. It will probably... As to our rivalry,
Mike Guy and Kakashi. He compared us to Mike Guy and Kakashi with
in that you will crow about
him as
one-upping me.
Kakashi.
In that you will crow about one-upping me and I won't even care. Then we published Chapter 23.
Which kind of fucked shit all to hell.
And then
And then a couple like the next chapter, he basically left a review that said, and I quote, "I feel like Lee Sedol going up against AlphaGo. You guys make moves I never could have even thought of."
And
Pretty
that's actually what led us to form the name of the Cross Brain. I considered that, well, if he was comparing us to AlphaGo, that sort of inspired me to suggest the idea of forming a collective name for ourselves. Hornet is actually the one who came up with it.
I did?
Yes, you did.
It's news to him, apparently.
I'd completely forgotten.
You were the one who designated us as the id, ego, and superego. And it was...
Okay. Now I remember.
Yes.
Okay. In a sudden, unexpected moment of mean-spiritedness, what are your thoughts on Luffy's renewed adventure?
I haven't read
#1 fic in the One Piece section.
I'm going to...
I haven't read it, but... I'm sorry, what was that?
Nothing, go ahead.
Well, I haven't read it, but I'm just hoping it's not like the #1 pick for the other main fandom I'm currently in, Kantai Collection, whose #1 pick is Ambience of Fleet Symphony, and holy crap, just don't read it. Don't give the guy the views, please.
Yeah.
Okay, to put it in very simple terms, you know all those nice things you were saying about New Game Plus, and all the great things it does, and all the horrible things it avoids doing?
Exact opposite.
Fix? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'll be honest, I haven't read it because I can't get past the first few chapters. It's just...
Speak for yourselves. I mean, I, for one... It follows canon way too closely. It doesn't stick to the butterfly much at all. But honestly, the way he writes it, well, I like the story. I like it a lot. I skip over all of the lemons, mind you. I don't like that.
Oh God, it has lemons?
It's a harem story.
Oh.
It's that kind of story, yes.
To be completely honest, it hardly focuses on that at all. There's basically a warning in each chapter, and you can just skip over those chapters without ever considering it. They hardly focus... There are more girls in the crew, yeah, but there are more guys, too. It's hardly a harem fic at all, in my opinion. It focuses pretty much mostly on Peggy Sue. It's mostly the time travel concept, and
Please tell me Luffy isn't involved in any of the lemons.
Oh, you wish.
Oh, God damn it.
Really? Yeah.
The basic concept is that after a cataclysmic battle that ended with Luffy as the only survivor at the end of the New World, he was imprisoned in...
that before.
It's not a new concept. It's like 7 years old at least.
Yeah. Anyway, he was imprisoned in Impel Down, and years later was rescued by an old man with the power of the open fruit.
Yeah.
So the door is better.
Yeah, it is about exactly as bad as it sounds. Yeah.
See, you're saying that, but the patient one here is saying that he likes it. So that's an interesting opinion and one I haven't actually heard. So specifically, what do you enjoy about it? Because I'm curious.
Well,
I found nothing, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Well, the additions of the new crewmates are one thing. I mean, just the way that he manages to convince some of the other some of the others along the way to join the crew and just how they play a realistic part fitting in with the Straw Hats well. If one thing, it makes me eager to see what Duncan is going to do with them, but honestly, I just like the way that it adds more to the story there. And well, I suppose...
So basically the character sections are enough for you to basically forgive the rest of it?
Honestly, I don't see... The only thing I really take issue with in the story is the lemons, and I just skip over those chapters, or at least at the bare minimum, I skip over those sections. And...
What's a subjective thing, then?
Hmm?
So it's basically down to taste.
Sorry about that.
Check please. So I will admit, okay, fully devil's advocate here against myself. I will admit it treads perfectly to canon, even when it really shouldn't. Like when it really shouldn't. But while it's treading along the same path as canon, it's actually a passable retelling of canon in a literary form.
That's pretty much my thoughts on it. Just a different way of telling the story. There should be more butterflies, of course, but I like the rewrites. I suppose that's the best way I can put it.
Okay.
In that case, I'm definitely going to skip it because I've never been a fan of just straight-up novelization fix.
Neither have I. Maybe that's why I really hate it. Oh wait,
Yep.
It is why I really hate it. Also, the fact that his pen name is Fuck the System 12, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, so I think that's all of the questions that we had on the list. So obviously, you'll probably want your Patreon in the description, yes? For people that want to support your efforts in writery endeavors.
Sure.
If I may, though, I do have one more recommendation.
Absolutely.
We've mentioned two of the biggest Peggy Sue fics in the fandom, but of the top four, we've got Once Again, which is long since dead and stands now as an invitation for any fic to try to make it more than halfway through the NA's lobby arc. But besides New Game Plus and LRA, there's the fourth place story, which is Second Wind by the Lost Samurai. This one has both Luffy and Zoro returning to the past to try to save their crew. And, well, I've been serving as something of a beta reader for the author, so I sort of have a involvement in the story. Nowhere near as much as the cross brain, mind you. I just scan over the chapters for typos after he publishes them. But well, just presenting that one, it does adhere to the plausibility of the butterfly. It throws in the expected twists that they would have from going back in time, changing things that went wrong before with all the strength of, or at least all the knowledge of New World veterans. And, well, apart from anything else, it's by far the closest fic in the fandom, the closest Peggy Sue fic to breaking the Victor's record. And considering that it's ongoing, I'd say that Second Wind is going to be the new milestone by the end of the year.
Yeah, I can't really... I like it too. I can't really speak against it. That one's a good fic. It's well written. It doesn't have any... Here a minute. Basically, yeah, it's got my recommendation as well.
I haven't read it either. But honestly, I think I'm a little burned out on Peggy Sue at the moment. So maybe I'll go back and read that once sometime in the future. Although if we're throwing out Peggy Sue recommendations, I think there is one for the Naruto fandom that I'd like to throw out, and that's Time Mix-Up. You know how we were talking earlier about Peggy Sue that send more than one person in the past? Well, Time Mix-Up takes it a step further by sending 4 people to the past, all from different timelines, to the same timeline.
Oh, I think I might know the one you're talking about.
Yeah. It doesn't take itself seriously at all, and I think that's to the fixed benefit, honestly. I find it absolutely hilarious.
It's all of Team 7, isn't it?
Nope, it's
No?
it's a different one. That's
okay.
not all of Team 7. It's Naruto, Kakashi, Yamato, and Jiraiya. Those 4. If I remember correctly. It's been a couple of years since I last reread it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I read fic that was very, very similar to that. And all of the characters, it was Team 7, they all go back to different points in time to when they wanted to go, but they all go back to the same timeline. So the first character goes back to the earliest point, and then the second character goes back, and everything's already changed because of the first character's doing stuff. Yeah.
I've seen that. It was in Harry Potter fan fictions instead of anything. I saw it there.
Personally, I find it a fun concept, so yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I guess that pretty much wraps up this interview, unless anyone wants to throw in anything last minute.
No, I think we're good. I'm good anyway, sorry.
Yes, I can't think of anything else to say presently.
Okay then, so I'd like to thank the Crossbrain for joining us for this, still don't have a name for this thing, but for the interview, so thank you Crossbrain, Xomniac, Hornet, and Patient One.
Thank you.
Sure.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Yep, so thanks to them, and thank you for listening. We'll be back with the podcast next Saturday and whatever the hell else we end up releasing next week. So thanks for listening. Bye now.
All right. Bye.
Ta-ta.